create a company that's like close to being a fascist, and then like.
Okay. Well, how am I?
Sorry.
Let's go through this. How am I a fascist?
No. Dude, like you.
Can you name one thing I believe that's fascist?
You believe that like you on. But
I'm such a bad fascist. I let the people who disagree in open mic to talk to me for 2 hours uninterrupted.
Okay.
I'm an awful fascist. I'm more like a free speech liberal of the 1970s, not a fascist.
But I just want to say Turning Point USA is a evil company that was funded by thousands of fracking companies, and that just...
No, it's not thousands, but we do have some frackers that give us money. But
yeah, and then all it is making the rich more... rich.
Fascism to fracking.
That's all it is. That's all it is.
Okay, again, I'm happy to have a debate. I can see you're getting kind of fired up.
I'm sorry.
So, but why are we evil? Like, we're having a nice discussion.
Because
all of a sudden you're calling me like
because
a
it
fascist.
seems like you just want the rich get even more rich. Like
we haven't talked about the rich at all. I mean, so you don't even know my positions on this stuff.
2, 3, somewhere in the bowels of the city that never sleeps,
Kevin McCullough, radio host with Salem Media,
is a man also not sleeping.
Syndicated radio talk show host Kevin McCullough.
And that guy would like a word with you.
Many of you know him as Nostradamus.
Of course that Kevin show is going to be great. The only thing that could be greater, of course, would be that Donald show. We don't have that, so we have that Kevin show.
Featuring the music of Dick Tunney and the Dream in Color Orchestra. Straight ahead, remembrances of Charlie Kirk, from Greg Laurie of Harvest Ministries, Ambassador Carla Sands of the America First Policy Institute, Meaghan Mobbs of Independent Women's Forum, and John Butcher of the Heritage Foundation, all coming up. Plus, a very special goodbye from Turning Point USA. And now from Times Square, where the lights shine bright, even through the shadows of loss, while a nation grieves, he's here to pay tribute. Here's the Kevin.
Welcome in, friends, and a good weekend to you. I hope that it is one that is meaningful. You know, many other media outlets have moved on from the Charlie Kirk story, but we haven't at That Kevin Show, nor has our parent company, Salem Media, and I have a feeling a good number of Americans across the country have not moved on yet. We won't be really able to until his memorial service is concluded on Sunday. And to that end, we want to pay tribute once again to our fallen colleague and friend. Just moments ago, I wrapped an interview with Eric Trump. We will air it in its completion next week. But here's a bit of what he had to say about Charlie Kirk just a bit ago. There is no two sides. These arguments, as Greg Gutfeld said, are dead to normal Americans because they see it for themselves. All of the violence comes from one way headed towards the other. But when we lost Charlie, we didn't lose someone who was just a bystander in the movement. This was the guy that was actually using the methodology that he believed in, which was open discourse with people that disagreed with him, friendly, winsomely, as cheerfully as he could. One time he sat down with all strippers and OnlyFans models and told them about the values and virtues of family. There was no person that he was too good to talk to, and there was no question too hard for him to address. And yet the very person that was modeling what we should have all been modeling, which is this winsome discourse when we have disagreement, was sniped by a bullet. And Eric, we have gotten to a point now where they tried it twice on your dad. Thank God that God put his hand on him and protected him. But they were successful with Charlie. What does this tell you about where our country's at right now?
When they've lost the debate, they turn to violence. That's what it tells me. And I think, they always talked about the tolerant left. It's the not so tolerant left. I only see the bullets going one way, right? I mean, we're a party of love. We're the party of dialogue. You know what was amazing about Charlie is he'd actually take the people who vehemently disagreed with him most, and he'd put those guys at the front of the line, right? I mean, this wasn't somebody who, just went to, to a red state like Mississippi and had gatherings of people. I mean, I went with Charlie Kirk to my alma mater, Georgetown, which, used to be a conservative school and, is probably far from conservative at this point. We filled an auditorium of thousands of kids, and within 1 minute of me opening my mouth, they all stood up. I took off some, their shirts. They all had like orange shirts, which said like, resist or some nonsense, and walked out. And Charlie and I sat there in Washington, D.C. I mean, this is a city we're probably not going to win under any circumstance based on kind of what it is and the general makeup, and we were literally debating in a place. I mean, it didn't matter if it was Seattle. It didn't matter if it was Portland. It didn't matter if it was at Georgetown. It didn't matter where it was. He was going to have open debate and open dialogue, and he did so effectively. And he was an amazing guy. And, just let me say this. They didn't take him off the stage. They just amplified that stage for Charlie. He might not be with us, right now physically, but man, did they mess up the perception all around the world. I mean, you had 1 million people march in London. You had people in Pretoria, South Africa march. And by the way, this wasn't just the youth vote. I mean, this was demographic. This was every demographic in the country that was touched by this. And so they cemented Charlie's legacy for another 5 generations of voters.
No doubt about it. The words of Eric Trump as we kick off our second tribute episode to Charlie Kirk. His memorial is scheduled for 2 p.m. Eastern Time, Sunday afternoon. And I know that Salem News Channel will be having continuous coverage of it starting at that time. It may be on in other places as well. Check your local listings for all of that. Charlie is one of those people that no matter what group of people he went to touch, he was successful. He made a difference. Whether it was his newborn babies, whether it was church leaders, whether it was kids that struggled with things. And sometimes he had to tell hard and difficult truths. Take a listen.
Your pastor spoke out regularly against the slaughter of the unborn. Well, no, my pastor doesn't do politics. Oh, so you want Donald Trump to speak out on holy matters when the person you tithe and offer to that you call your home church won't even whisper about it. Got it.
Preach! That's good.
Let's remind each other what church is. Church is not a place where you go to be affirmed. Church is a place where you go to be saved and corrected. It is not a place to be told about how your lifestyle is the greatest thing ever. You go there to be reminded that you need a Savior and that your life is currently in error. But people don't like that. They say, well, that's not very nice if I tell the people that come to church in that way. Well, hold on a second. What exactly are you running here? Is it a church, which is about correction and elevating the divine? Or is it a place where a TED Talk occurs with organized parking, above average coffee, and a motivational speech, and good music with nice lights? What exactly are you running there? You see, a church, in its proper context, as Andrew has done a great job throughout his career, and what a great example, by the way, for other pastors to follow. A church should be unafraid to go against the culture and not conform to the world, but preach the word.
If you thought that he was going to go light on substance, you didn't know Charlie Kirk. But if you only think he was a tough guy, saying the tough things to power, you had the wrong guy. Because there was probably no more kind-hearted, compassionate person who genuinely cared about young people than Charlie Kirk. What took a lot of people by surprise over the last couple of weeks were the numbers of clips that showed his honest, compassionate side. Take a look at this one right here.
I just want to say I'm a transgender male. What age should kids be able to get things like hormone therapy? Because I don't know what's true, what's not.
Tell me, are you comfortable telling me your story?
I've known that since like 3rd grade, and I'm currently 19, almost 20. I've known basically since then. I didn't start going by like a different name until 7th and 8th grade. I just don't know, like with the whole medical stuff, like what's true, what's not, what's helpful, because I've heard so many different opinions.
First of all, thank you so much for that.
Yeah, of course.
So I'm going to have an opinion that very few people will ever tell you, which is I want you to be very cautious putting drugs into your system in the pursuit of changing your body. Mm-hmm. I instead encourage you to work on what's going on in your brain first. I think what you need first and foremost is just a diagnosis. Mm-hmm. Just someone that is going to listen to what you've gone through, listen to what else is going on. My prayer for you, and again, very few people will say this, I actually want to see you be comfortable in how you were born.
Yeah.
I know that you might not feel that way, but I think that is something that you can achieve. I think that with the right team and the right people, you don't have to wage war on your body. You can learn to love your body.
You don't have to wage war on your body. You can learn to love your body. You can find joy. You can find goodness. You can find love. You can find hope. Hope was Charlie Kirk for the next generation. So today we honor you, Charlie. Thank you for what you left with us. We are in deep, deep gratitude. Kevin McCullough coming back from Times Square. Don't go away. Welcome back to Times Square. It's That Kevin Show, thatkevinshow.com. Glad you're with us. You know that on a weekly basis, we check in with our friends at the Heritage Foundation on a number of different issues across the spectrum. And today, Jonathan Butcher joins me to talk about education and their brand new Education Freedom Report Card and kind of where we're at in terms of this. Jonathan, it's good to see you again. Thanks for coming back. As we are in the Salem universe, at least, still mourning the loss of Charlie and his memorial service yet to come on Sunday. There are a lot of things that he discussed and talked about and amplified in ways that nobody else could. And I'm thinking about the educational arena specifically. He was so eager to talk to college kids. He was so eager to talk to high school kids and to help them kind of understand that when they claim they're paying for or getting an education, that they really need to understand what they're getting and how to decipher it from being indoctrination versus education. And I'm just curious your thoughts now that we've had a few days since his passing, and kind of how you think that impacts the educational freedom quotient, if you will.
Well, the whole episode, of course, is devastating, and my thoughts and prayers and empathy and compassion to his wife and children. A terrible situation for all who knew him and were friends with him. On the side of what he represented, I mean, he brought debates to college campuses, and there's not enough of that on college campuses or even in high schools today. And teaching young people how to talk through the issues, how to stick to the facts, and how to not let emotion override what we know to be true, what we know to be hard and fast, either data or truths or analysis or explanation. That kind of discourse is not being taught enough, either at the K-12 level or at the higher education level. And that is a failing of the school systems. It's a failing of higher education to not protect not just free speech on campus, but civil dialogue, right? Civil discourse. And then in K-12, very similarly, civics has gone by the wayside. There's not being enough done at the K-12 level to help students understand what it means for us to have liberty, to have freedom, and what freedom of speech actually entails. And it does not give you the right to say things that incite harassment, to call for violence on other people. That is actually, in the case of, say, professors, right, who are saying these things at public colleges, that's not protected. It's not protected to incite violence.
Jonathan, the head of the Oxford Debate Club. I mean, Oxford's, a real slack university. Nobody really thinks much of it. Joking. But they're head of the debate club. The debate club has always kind of taken great delight in kind of instituting these debates on classic issues. And the former head had Charlie there several times and seemed to love the participation. But the incoming person just basically all out said he basically got what he deserved. I mean, if we're talking about formal education at the highest level of the highest level of the highest level of universities, and that's the mantra that's being expressed, we're in real trouble.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it exemplifies the way in which political discourse has been reduced to the least common denominator. And it is a poor example for students. It's a poor example for educators. I think that what we can do, what we need to do going forward, both on the right and the left, but speaking as a conservative, I find it incumbent on me and in my discourse to make sure that I can be an example for young people by sticking to facts, by being impassioned even about what I believe in, but you can't do it in such a way where you target other people, where you call for violence. And it sounds like this should be obvious, but as we've seen over the last really since October 7th, right, that the examples over and over again towards especially students who are of Jewish descent in the United States have been harassed, have been physically threatened. All of these kinds of examples of students being chased to hide in the library, right, in Cooper Union in New York. Yep. I mean, these kinds of things are just despicable, and we have to be the better angels of our nature need to be still present there, even in our debates.
Well, it's interesting because the late Rush Limbaugh used to say, when they threaten your right to speech, speak louder. I don't think anybody could have been about trying to create discourse in a more winsome and because even kids that disagreed with him, he would oftentimes have them laughing by the end of their back and forth together because he was so good-natured about, and he would be very self-deprecating. He would say, "Hey, you want to debate? You're a college educator or college educated. I'm a high school dropout. Let's debate." And many times the really, really more evil intent kids wouldn't participate with him in that way because he did have a quick wit and a solid self-educational system. And let's kind of softly shift gears into the education report card, because if kids can use their intellect and ability to read and comprehend and store knowledge in their own brain, that's telling us an even worse story than what is already being told about how much failing the public education system is providing for our kids. And it's failing on a big time level. Charlie tried junior college and found it so infuriating, so frustrating, so stymieing that he walked away altogether. But he could explain 7 or 8 of the most prominent schools of economic theory. He could explain biology better than some professors. He could talk about in depth historical fact better than some sociologists. I mean, there is a broadness to the level of information that he took in because he wanted to learn. And he said, the system's failing me. I'm going to learn on my own. Anyway, I'm kind of getting the cart before the horse. But what does the report card tell us right now?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And there's a direct segue here because our report card this year, for the first time, it had a category on civics education. And we actually rated states on how well they deliver civic education to K-12 students. I would point to states like Florida, where they have a civics initiative. They even train teachers how to teach civics to young people. Credit to Louisiana, who overhauled their social studies standards just in recent years. And in their standards, they go out of their way to talk about not just the failings, which is altogether too common, I think, around the U.S. of our founding fathers, but also the things that give students something to aspire to. They talk about the elements of American history that give students something that they feel like they can be proud of and that they want to aspire to reach toward. So Florida, Louisiana have done a terrific job there. South Dakota also overhauled their standards in recent years, very similar to Louisiana in the way in which they talk about American history as giving us something to be proud of. And then more recently, just last week, Texas overhauled their social studies standards and really incorporated all of world history, dating back to even prehistory, beginning in the younger grades, and then using what they called sort of a repeating approach, a spiraling approach. They would revisit these topics as a child goes through their high school education, even through middle school. And so you're helping students to revisit key topics so that they can understand it at a deeper level each time they come in contact with it. So very happy to report that our report card pays special attention to civics.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin. Show with Kevin McCullough. From New York, that Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to That Kevin Show from Times Square. Kevin McCullough, glad you're with us. A special edition as we continue our thoughts about the life and the reflection and the celebration of everything that Charlie Kirk accomplished in his short, can you believe it, just 13 years that he was in the public eye. From age 18 to 31, he accomplished all that we know that Turning Point USA, his podcast, his radio show, everything else that he's accomplished all happened within that short, condensed period of time. Meaghan Mobbs is back with us from the Independent Women's Forum, an organization that kind of has come of age in the age of Charlie Kirk. Meaghan, I think, particularly in the Trump era, IWF became much more well-known, and what you guys have been doing is so much more potent and important right now. And I've been a champion for you guys, but Charlie had a big impact on young women in the country, particularly college-aged, even those that disagreed with him. He always tried to reach in a friendly manner. What are your personal thoughts?
Kevin, I think you said exactly right, which was he was a pioneer in an era of debate. He purposely went to college campuses to reach people, and he invited people who disagreed with him to engage in discourse, to have those challenging conversations. And that's actually what made Charlie so special. It didn't matter that you disagreed with him. It's that you were willing to enter the arena of discourse with him. And that is his legacy. And I think it's something that we should be celebrating, irrespective of where you fall on the political spectrum. And we should all be condemning political violence and anyone that wants to silence free speech here in America.
I am particularly disturbed, and I'm not making any bones about this. I've been pretty open in my town hall column since his death and what we're talking about on my radio show. But you have not just Charlie's death, but you've got the stabbing of the young girl on the Charlotte light rail. You've got the mowing down of the kids in Minneapolis a couple of weeks before that. You have the assassination attempts of Donald Trump. You have the walking up behind a CEO on the street in New York City and blowing away somebody at point blank range. There used to be this ability, I think, for both sides to engage in debate that they didn't see eye to eye on. But I don't remember an era where one side was so wholly dedicated to literally wiping out people from the other side. And on top of that, because not all those examples were political, the girl on the light rail, she's just a refugee. She's just here. She was minding her own business. She was just going home from her shift at the pizza parlor. And without any bothering of anyone, the guy behind her stands up and shoves a knife in her, and she doesn't even know she's bleeding out and dying until she's dead. I mean, this is but my response to that is what you had in all of those circumstances was you had a large number of people on the left go on CNN, go on MSNBC, even Jessica Tarlov and some on Fox, that tried to in some way explain away these evil deeds, to explain away the rationale for people taking these actions. You had Matthew Dowd within seconds of Charlie being shot on Thursday going on MSNBC saying that he said hateful words. And so because he said hateful words, in essence, he was due a hateful response. And that this had basically been something that he had sowed in himself. There was a TikTok going around the day following Charlie's death in which there were young people saying, "We got Charlie in the neck," like leading chants of it. Where are we at? And what does it bode for us as a country in this moment?
So I think that you hit upon like so many different things there, and I want to try to make sure I address all of them because I think they're all so critically important, which is, first, we are seeing a rise in political violence in our country, and it has to be condemned wholesale by everyone. There can be no place for that in our country, irrespective of political party. I think we also have to restore truth back to our words. Debate is debate. Violence is violence. Words are not violence, and therefore we can agree bitterly at times, but that does not justify a physical, violent reaction to words, even if you find them disgusting or whatever adjective you want to use to describe them. And so I think that we have to kind of restore ourselves back to what violence actually is and what debate actually is, because without that, you do have this extreme polarization, these extreme actions, and they do feel justified, even though they're not justified at all. So that's one thing. I think we have to wholesale ensure that we are condemning political violence and being very honest in the debate about that. Relatedly, we have a crisis of public safety in our country. You mentioned Irina, the Ukrainian woman refugee fleeing a war zone, looking for safety here in America, only to find her life ended here in America, not by a bomb in Russia. And so I think the issue is that we do have a revolving door of crime in our country. The person that killed her, 14 previous arrests, was let go. And so we have a problem with crime. And how that's related to political violence is when you excuse bad behavior, when you reward it, or you say it doesn't really matter, it's not that bad, then what happens is there's no consequence.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. Here he is from New York. That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to That Kevin Show. Kevin McCullough, a very special edition as we are celebrating the accomplishments and life of a legacy voice, a pioneering mind, someone who had a much bigger heart than he was ever given credit for in the media. This was someone who actually genuinely loved people that disagreed with him, to the degree that he would let them come to a microphone, and as they were yelling at him saying, "You're a fascist," he was like, "I'm a terrible one because my microphone's open to you here to talk to me." We're talking about Charlie Kirk and his passing this week. Meaghan Mobbs returns with us, and she's written this piece, "The Loss of Charlie Kirk and the Price of Our Divisions." And I want to get into that in just a second, Meaghan, but I want to go to where you ended in the last segment. You said that on social media, the vitriol has gotten really out of control, and you're absolutely right. And there are those of us on the right that have contributed to that, and we've been harsher than necessary. And there's certainly people on the left that have gone way overboard, calling for the deaths of people. There have been people that were celebrating Charlie's death after he died. It's just disgusting stuff. But one of the areas that Charlie really impacted, and people like my 12-year-old and my colleagues' 14-year-old and other people that had high school and college age kids, is he got into those crevices of society with the message of hope and a new day and American excellence and Jesus. And there were all these ways that he was able to reach past places that nobody else went to. And had it not been for social media, I'm not sure he would have been able to do that.
I think you're exactly right. I mean, social media is beautiful in some ways and brutal in others. And I think you're exactly right. The thing about Charlie that was so special and unique, and the problem is right now, of course, you're seeing all the things that people found controversial brought to the forefront. But to your point earlier, he brought conservatism, conservative thought, faith to an entire generation of young people who felt so strongly about it. I think what's so tragic is I was looking at the videos yesterday, which were so horrific, of what happened to Charlie. The crowd was huge. The crowd was huge because he spoke to so many different people about so many different things. And again, to your point, there was people that showed up that didn't agree with him, but were willing to go listen and were willing to engage him on the content of his ideas. And that's what is the true tragic loss of all of this, is that people have to feel safe on left, right, center to say things and encourage people to debate them, not for it to lead to violence.
It's totally one thing for Charlie to say the things that he says, and if you understand them in context, about 99% of the time, no one's going to have a problem with him. The problem was that media purposefully misrepresented him and making him supposedly out to be a person that would say things that he never said. You talk about this in a column. What did you feel was so important that you wanted to get it across in writing?
I think that what I want more than anything is there has to be this calming down of everything. And I know us, because I was so angry. I am so angry. And in our anger, I think all of us want to punch back, right? All of us in our sadness and our rage want to say, we feel targeted. We're the ones being attacked. And in many cases, that is true. You listed them earlier. But I think that we have to return, and I think this is what Charlie would actually want, is a return to our better angels, our better nature. That it's okay to be disagreeable. It's okay to have different sides, right? To say that there's not going to be differences is ridiculous, but we should be willing to be disagreeable without being violent. And I think in this loss, there's a lot of fear that this is going to be normalized, that if you disagree with someone or you have punchy or unique or maybe outside the norm ideas, that the result isn't going to be a healthy debate. It's going to be violence. And what you end up having then is a lack of free speech, a lack of free expression, and that makes us less safe and less free and less democratic.
Well, that's what I want to get into, because the motive of whoever was behind what happened here and whoever's been behind a lot of the violence we've seen, the Minneapolis shooting, it was very clear that the transgressor there wanted the teachings of Christianity to be injured and to be stopped because they didn't line up with what that person felt sexually they should have the right to expect. The same with Charlie. I think the idea was, well, we can't out-organize him and we can't shut him up any other way, so we'll literally silence his voice.
Exactly.
And I think that sends a chilling message to people like me that is on the air 25 hours a week and has a lot of, social media out there and columns I've written and stuff I've said. But Meaghan, the more I've thought about this, and it is kind of a scary day to be living in. I mean, we got notes from Salem management asking us as show hosts and personalities to be extra careful in our, activities abroad and so forth from now on. And it's gonna sit in the back of my mind. But the thing that we can't do, we can't let it stop us from speaking, stop us from engaging, stop us from having the civil discourse in society. Because without it, the polarization only gets more pronounced.
I think you're exactly right. I think that this is where we have to be courageous and we have to lean into our fear. I think there's many people who express views that are potentially polarizing or challenging, who are fearful. But I would just say to you and to them, we have to have the courage of our convictions. We have to be willing to persuade and put ourselves out there, because that is the only way that we're going to stay free. And so I think this is a moment earlier. I said we have to unite around the things that make us American, the unique things that we all possess, irrespective of the political spectrum, but that also we have to lean on our courage to be willing to keep speaking.
I'm reminded of an old Rush Limbaugh quote, and Rush was accused of being a bit of a bomb thrower and kind of part of the problem, if you believe that there was a problem. But he said, when they come to take your speech away, speak louder. And by the way, he was not referring to assassination. He was talking about government trying to clamp down on speech and government trying to squelch voices and so forth. This raises it to a different level. This raises it to kind of a 3D perspective as opposed to a 2D, if you will. And I think that he's exactly right. I think that but I would caution my colleagues across the spoken word media. Let's be more winsome. Let's be more like Charlie. Let's not get so angry with those who disagree with us, and instead engage them from a standpoint of how can we understand what you're saying, and how can I help you understand what I'm saying? I think that when that dies, everything else dies with it.
I couldn't agree more. I think there was a column that was written by Eli Lake in the New York Times today that said the exact same thing: to be more winsome, to have the moxie, the willingness to debate in a way that is meant to be persuasive. And that is what makes us so great as a country. Like, let the best ideas win. And that means we have to talk about all the ideas and then settle as a majority on what we feel as Americans is that best idea.
Meaghan Mobbs of Independent Women's Forum. Go to IWF.org and look up the loss of Charlie Kirk and the price of our divisions. Meaghan, we appreciate your time.
Ready or not, we'll be right back. That Kevin.
Under no circumstance ever should a man ever let a woman pay for a date, or you should split ever. No circumstance.
Even on the third, fourth, fifth. What if it's the first date and you're just not into
for anything?
Okay, well let me.
Period.
Well, let me. Okay, so
what kind of world are we living in?
Well, hold on a second. I agree with you. If I'm dating a girl, I would pay for everything.
Everything.
Yeah, everything. However, I could see for other people that might be in a different financial position, you pay for 10 dates and then she's like, you know what, I want to treat you.
Well, that's totally different. No, what we're talking about is like, oh, we're going to alternate. Like, well, what's your serious? And she wants to take you out to something for a nice dinner. And you might, by the way, if you have the intent to marry, you're already like kind of blending finances. Like, I get that psychologically. But like, if you're like, oh, we'll take turns. Like, oh, you pay this time, I pay this time.
What's your advice to a girl who the guy she's currently seeing, he says that?
Oh, do not marry that man.
But here's the thing. I feel like they should always
break offer.
Great. But they should offer. They should pull out the credit card.
The woman? Of course not.
Just to offer.
No.
It's a nice gesture.
No, by the way, no. This is feminism. Feminism is that you have to be this like self-independent. This is not a nice gesture. It's you trying to be like egalitarian. No. You as women should want to be provided for. In fact, you should have an expectation that you as a woman are so important and so critical and so necessary and beautiful that it shouldn't even be a question.
Somewhere in the bowels of the city that never sleeps,
Kevin McCullough, radio host with Salem Media,
is a man also not sleeping.
Syndicated radio talk show host Kevin McCullough.
And that guy would like a word with you.
Many of you know him from as Vostradamus.
Of course that Kevin show is going to be great. The only thing that could be greater, of course, would be that Donald show. We don't have that, so we have that Kevin show.
Featuring the music of Dick Tunney and the Dream in Color Orchestra. Straight ahead, as we remember the life of Charlie Kirk, John Butcher from the Heritage Foundation, Meaghan Mobbs of the Independent Women's Forum, Ambassador Carla Sands of the America First Policy Institute, and Pastor Greg Laurie of Harvest Ministries are all here to pay homage to this great America. And now, from Times Square, the beating heart of a nation that is still grieving, yet unbound. Here to remember Charlie Kirk is that Kevin.
For Assignment Desk Weekend, I'm Kevin McCullough. 1 week after the shocking loss of Charlie Kirk, America prepares to honor his life and legacy. On this edition of Assignment Desk Weekend, we'll take a look at the leadership transition at Turning Point, the fallout in late-night television, and the thousands expected to turn up at Sunday's memorial service in Arizona. This week, Turning Point USA formally named Charlie's wife, Erica Kirk, as its CEO and new chair. It was discussed and a move that Charlie long favored as he had had private conversations. She takes the reins of an organization surging with new energy. Campus chapters are expanding, donations are rising, and young conservatives are lining up to carry the torch that Charlie lit. Meanwhile, media headlines erupted when ABC suspended Jimmy Kimmel Live following the host's tasteless remarks about Kirk's assassination. Major station groups, including Nexstar and Sinclair, among them, went further by pulling the program altogether. Some have even replaced Kimmel's slots with tribute specials honoring Charlie Kirk. In the meantime, guest hosts have filled the mic, but the future of the show remains very unclear. Attention now turns to Sunday in Glendale, Arizona, where State Farm Stadium will host a massive public memorial. Officials anticipate thousands of mourners, activists, pastors, GOP leaders, ordinary Americans, all who saw Kirk as a voice for their values. President Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Rubio are among the confirmed speakers. Security preparations are extensive, befitting both the size and significance of the gathering. Kirk's death has only intensified the reach of the movement he started at age 18. Under Erica's leadership, Turning Point is pledging to press ahead with campus tours, America Fest, faith initiatives, all on schedule. Analysts say this moment will define whether the organization can thrive without its founder's presence. So far, momentum suggests it will. With social media engagement spiking and new supporters rallying in wake of the tragedy, Charlie is gone far too soon. But as Sunday's memorial approaches, it's clear. The voice echoes in the leaders he inspired, the family he cherished, and the millions he reached. From Times Square, for Assignment Desk Weekend, I'm Kevin McCullough.
I met Charlie in Miami, Florida some years ago. Wonderful young man. And it's so shocking to think that someone with so much of their life ahead of them would be taken from us and in such a horrible way. You'll read articles that will describe him as a conservative activist or a right-wing activist. And I think we need to understand who Charlie Kirk really was deep down inside and what motivated him. Yes, he was a patriot. Yes, he was an American who loved his country. But first and foremost, Charlie Kirk was a Christian. It was his faith in Christ that motivated him to do what he did, and he accomplished so much in a relatively short life. He started Turning Point USA at the age of 18, and he went to be with the Lord at the age of 31. I think of a statement of a wonderful woman of God named Corrie ten Boom, who said, "A life is not measured by its duration, but by its donation." With that in mind, Charlie certainly made a great donation with his life. He made such a difference. And I've seen so many videos of him on college campuses, talking with students at Oxford, giving speeches. And he was such a powerful communicator because he could logically defend his position. And he did so with such courage and clarity. And I would even say compassion. I've seen videos of him, as I'm sure you have as well, of young people just insulting him to his face, and he would smile and then respond to them. He was very influential with younger people. With the generation of kids that primarily get their news from TikTok, they knew who Charlie Kirk was. And this is a tremendous loss. I think of how when I was young, how we were impacted by the JFK assassination. And I think for many young people, it'll have a similar effect on them. There's a resurgence of young people returning to church right now, especially Gen Z. And without question, Charlie Kirk had their ear and was influencing so many of them. At a time like this, we ask why. Why would God allow something like this to happen? And I can't really answer that question. I know we grappled with that why question when our own son, Christopher, age 33, died in an automobile accident 17 years ago. So we pivoted to the what question and the who question. First, the what question. What do we do? Well, we need to turn to God. And I think that we need to be inspired by Charlie's life. He was carrying the baton, and one would have thought he would have carried it for many more years, but now his race is done, but he hands that baton off, and we need to carry it to the next generation and call them to Christ and speak boldly on cultural issues and not be embarrassed or be ashamed. But then there's the who. Who do we turn to? We turn to God. See, here's the thing. Charlie Kirk is in heaven right now. He's safely in the arms of Jesus. The moment he took his last breath on earth, he took his first breath in heaven. The Bible says when we're in God's presence, there is fullness of joy, and on his right hand there are pleasures forevermore. Charlie is safely in the arms of Jesus. And the Lord perhaps has already said to him, "Well done, good and faithful servant. Enter into the joy of your Lord." But let's really remember to pray for Charlie's wife, Erica, and his 2 children who will not understand why their daddy's not coming home. And what a tragedy and what a loss this is. But what a legacy he left with his life. I think of the words of Jim Elliot, who was martyred for his faith. And he wrote in his journal, "I don't seek a long life. I seek a full one like you, Lord Jesus." Charlie lived a full life, and he made a big difference with his life, and his legacy will continue on. So we thank God for him, and we thank God for the influence that he will have, I think, perhaps even more in the months and years to come, because he left so much material behind. He was so active, so busy, fulfilling the mission God called him to. And I would close by saying this. I pray that there will be a spiritual awakening in America. I know that was something Charlie cared about and talked about a lot as well. You know, when I was younger, we had the assassination I already alluded to of President Kennedy. Then Martin Luther King was assassinated. And not long after that, RFK, the brother of President Kennedy, was assassinated as well. And on the heels of that, a great spiritual awakening broke out in America called the Jesus Movement. May God use the life and the legacy of Charlie Kirk to remind America that we need to turn back to God.
Greg Laurie on That Kevin Show as we continue our memory, our legacy look back leading up to his memorial service tomorrow. I hope that you will stay with us. Kevin McCullough from New York.
Ready or not, we'll be right back. That Kevin. From New York, that Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square. It's Kevin McCullough. Glad to have you with us as the nation, as Salem Media continues to mourn the loss of Charlie Kirk. Many people from across the spectrum, and I have been blown away at the voices that have come out of the woodwork. You have NFL linebackers. You've got entire Major League Baseball teams. You've got the lead singer of Coldplay, who I never would have thought he even knew who Charlie Kirk was. And yet you've had so many people across so many different spectrums of society say, hey, this guy touched somebody's life. And beyond that, just the outrage at the robbing of two little children of their father, of robbing a young wife of her husband. Here to discuss this and some additional items is Carla Sands, chair for the Foreign Policy Department at America First Policy Institute, former ambassador, and very, very keen on the whole energy issue as well. Carla, you and I are in staunch agreement. We need more energy, not less, and we can talk about that at some point as well if we have the time. But I know that this last week, you, amongst other dignitaries, had the chance to be at Kennedy Center, which thank you, President Trump, for opening back up and making it a beautiful place to be again. But there was an extremely spiritual, overwhelming component about Charlie Kirk in this memorial, but also the tribute to his faith, what he believed, and how important he thought it was that Jesus Christ be the center of pretty much everything that he did.
Yeah, Kevin, it's amazing. I can remember Charlie, when I first met him, he was still a teenager. And I remember introducing him to friends. In fact, I introduced him to a good friend who ultimately introduced him to the President Trump's sons. And that's how he began to have a relationship with that family. He was an extraordinary young man. He understood how to communicate with people, no matter who they are, whether they're old or young, it didn't matter. And he learned how to talk about the scripture in reference to everything he did, so that he had an amazing verse for all of the points he was making with young people as he spoke with them. It was so exciting to see him in action and how he transformed his idea, so just an idea, to when I would go to these conference rooms at hotels when he was first starting out, and there'd be maybe 30, 40 people, to these extraordinary events where it was literally at his event in Phoenix that RFK Jr. endorsed President Trump, and they had that big moment that so many of us watched.
Well, and the interesting thing about that, and it pertains to his use of scripture, but also it pertains to his use of knowledge. Carla, you and I have both been around a lot of elected leaders, a lot of people that rush out to a podium. I mean, I think the most dangerous place on earth is between Chuck Schumer and a press conference podium on any given Sunday afternoon. But there's all these people that seek the limelight, seek the opportunity to have a microphone and to say things, and don't know anything about what they're saying. And the remarkable thing about Charlie was that as he did the Prove Me Wrong tours, which were kind of, in name, they were even kind of a little deceptive because they weren't hostile. The kids came up and tried to prove him wrong, but they were friendly, and he was friendly. But he never used notes. And it could be discussing biology and scientific theory of the origins of the earth. It could be one of 9 different economists that he had studied and talking about economics. It could be national foreign policy, of which is very complicated. And even experts in Washington disagree a lot of times on how to go about those things. Or it could be spiritual. It could be family related. He had very strong opinions about how men and women should court and date and everything else. And he never had any notes in front of him. It was all from inside the mind that had studied and packed that information in there.
You're so right. You know, when Charlie would engage with the students, they loved it because nobody else was taking on any question. There was so much, subterfuge. He brought light where there was darkness. He brought truth where there was falsehood. If you think about so many issues that just lies are being jammed down the throats of young people. But I think that the loss of Charlie is, for me, it's a moment. It's like the young people have just now been attacked, right? One of their leaders has been killed. So what are they going to do about it? Are they going to step up? Because courage built our country. Courage will save our country. I'd love to see 10,000 Charlie Kirks emerge from this tragedy. Yeah. I know as a Christian, God takes tragedy and terrible things and turns them into blessings.
That is certainly something that I think any of us that have lived through a deep tragedy in our own lives have seen to be the truth. I do want to ask you about this idea that the people that oppose him, and they're the same people that oppose President Trump in large part, they're the same people that oppose what was the majority of the electorate in the last election. Yeah. There seems to me, Carla, to be a darkening of their soul. It is getting darker inside their hearts. They are going to more and more extremist ends to try to achieve their policy and their directional goals. And when they can't out reason somebody like Charlie Kirk, then the only thing that they feel like that they can do is to silence him. And we saw that with Dr. King. We saw that with John F. Kennedy. We saw that with RFK Jr.'s dad. We haven't had a political assassination in this country in a very long time. And yet here in literally the blood of the martyr, we are seeing the exposing of the left's agenda kind of coming to fruition. And it's a very ugly picture of where we are.
It is. And there's a couple of things that I'll refer you to that RFK Jr. said. But first, I just want to reflect that people may want to go and watch the words that President Trump said from the Oval Office not that long ago regarding Charlie's death and what he stood for in our country. Yep. But RFK Jr. not that long ago said something. He said the only thing that's going to save our country is a spiritual revival. That's from RFK Jr. And then, yes, there was when he spoke at Charlie Kirk's memorial, he talked about how his niece is going to study in Europe, and her mom noticed her putting a Bible in her suitcase and said, "Why are you taking a Bible?" And she said, "Mom, because I want to live like Charlie Kirk." And so while we have the darkness coming from the left, I think, yes, it is a spiritual battle, but we can see we all want to be like Charlie Kirk on the right side. Yeah. And light destroys darkness. Light defeats darkness. And so if I will just say, don't be silent, talk to people. And as far as the evil and the violent people on the left, I think that President Trump and his leadership will quell that. But clearly, there is a trend on the left, and it's even the members of Congress are saying things. The left-wing senators are saying things. Even Joe Biden saying that President Trump should be, I think it was taken out or something, in one of his speeches. This is really a terrible trend. It must end, but we're going to have to insist it ends.
Yeah, and it's going to take more than just authorities telling people to end it. It's going to require the citizens of this country to step up, to speak up, and to live our lives boldly. We're speaking with Carla Sands of America First Policy Institute. She is the Foreign Policy Chair, and she's also a Senior Fellow on the Energy.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. Kevin McCullough.
Kevin McCullough back with you from Times Square. Very glad to be here, part of the Salem News Channel, Salem Radio Network, the very same media bunch that Charlie Kirk was so proud to be associated with. And I remember when we hired him, I remember how excited Phil Boyce was. I remember the effervescence that you had this shooting star that was just really going to change the world. And boy, did he. Not only did he start out with a goal of having an America First club on every high school and college campus in the country, and at the time of his death, there were about 3,500 campuses that had some form of representation on it. But over the first weekend after his death, Turning Point USA received 32,000 requests for additional clubs to be formed. That's more than the 23,000 campuses that exist in the U.S. So we're going to get to that goal being fulfilled, I hope, very soon. But an amazing thing. Carla Sands is back with us. She's the foreign policy chair at America First Policy Institute, and she also speaks out on the issue of energy. We've talked about very inventive things like the acquisition of Greenland in the past. Carla, I appreciate you being so well versed on so many different areas. But since you are a former ambassador and you've spent a lot of time in foreign places, you probably took note that over the first weekend after Charlie's passing, there were breakout marches and crowds and vigils in places that I did not even know knew the name of Charlie Kirk. Now, obviously, he's been to the UK and he's debated at Oxford a time or two. Those are legendary. You see those on the internet. But in many, many other countries, there were people carrying signs saying, "We are Charlie." What is it about the values that he espoused? What was it about a, quote, America First viewpoint that is resonating with those young people, even on foreign soil?
Well, Kevin, it's that because he said, and this is a quasi quote from Charlie, when we stop talking, that's when violence happens. That's when bad things happen. The reason that the United States has our First Amendment rights, the freedom of speech, is to preserve our constitutional republic. Charlie Kirk understood that. And that was after his faith, that was the number one thing, is he insisted we have to have a dialogue. We have to have open discussion. The left wants to shut that down because all of their ideas are terrible. They're anti-human and they're anti-God, and people don't like them when they know them. They don't want the young people to hear the side of conservative ideas or godly principles, because they know if they hear them, they'll probably like them. But Charlie went to places like South Korea, where they have a new government that is much closer to communist China.
He was there, I think, 2 days before he was shot? He was literally making his way back from having been to Southeast Asia at that very point.
Kevin, it's true. Charlie was very aware of foreign policy and how foreign policy, it affects our U.S. policy in our country and our security. We don't want South Korea to go to be part of the CCP ideas of the Communist Party and cozying up to North Korea, which is a totalitarian country. And they have a new leftist president who has jailed his opponent. He's jailing pastors, oppressing churches, jailing young people that were, just advocating for free speech and for the conservative ideas. So he has gone against those people. Tragically, Charlie got on a plane and went over there to talk to the people and say, we're standing with you. We want you to have free speech. Charlie was just debating not that long ago at Oxford again. And the people, they would try to shut him down from speaking the truth. Now Oxford has a new leader who said that the left must succeed and win by any means necessary. So the talk on the left in the UK is getting even more, I would say, more Marxist, where they want to, by any means necessary, which is what happened to Charlie not that long ago.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because Oxford's that great kind of laboratory of free speech where they stand at the podium and they debate back and forth, very similar to the House of Commons, actually, where they kind of really get after it. And if you've just seen his side of the debate out of context, you may not think that he was as winsome as he is in other places. But I'm telling you, he scored points. He made friends when he went there and he spoke as forcefully as he did. And he didn't. This is the thing I really want to drive home, Carla. He never thought it was necessary to be inhumane to people, to speak down to them, to speak over them, to try to shut down them. In fact, at all of his events, he would say, you come and speak to me, and I will give you the right to speak first. And when he could sense that a student, and there's this one interaction he had with a trans individual that really comes to mind, when he could sense that they were very uneasy and even asking their question, but that they were sincere, he would show extra politeness and say, do you mind telling me more of the context? Do you mind telling me more of your story? I want to understand it better before I respond. Carla, we don't have that in public discourse anymore.
No, you're going to make me tear up just hearing about that. Yes, he had the milk of human kindness.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. From New York, That Kevin McCullough.
All right, friends, as we continue this weekend of memorializing Charlie, of course, pointing to his memorial service coming up Sunday, here's some comments I made at a gathering in the New York area this week.
We gather tonight under a shadow that we wish we didn't have to face. A shadow that was cast by a tall man, our brother, our fellow soldier. He wasn't a political figure. He wasn't even really a commentator. He barely had started in talk radio. He'd been on the air for 5 years. I think Rush was on like 35. He built his patriotism not on blind nationalism, which is what he's being accused of, but on a deeper cornerstone, something called the Word of God. The eternal truth that Jesus Christ was real and mattered and played a difference in people's lives. And it was from that foundation that Charlie drew his courage. He stood in front of crowds that were hostile, and he would say to kids, if you disagree with me, come stand at this microphone. One girl comes up and says, you're a fascist. And he says, I'm a terrible one, because I'm giving you the microphone. He was winsome, and he always cared more about reaching the person than winning the argument. Hear me carefully on that. His concern was changing the heart of the person that he had contact with. It wasn't just getting them to agree with him. By the way, some other interesting news. Jimmy Kimmel's gone, thank you. Yeah. The work's not done though, because Ilhan Omar got voted through without being censored in the House tonight. So the work's not done. But the winsomeness is what Charlie often reminded us of. He would say things like, bad things happen when discussion ends. You think about that. How many of you are married? You stop talking, that's not good. Countries start talking, goes to war. He believed the very act of speaking and debating and wrestling with truth in the public square was itself a defense against tyranny. This guy modeled what the founding fathers were. That's why he took every question, even the hard ones, even the hostile ones. He knew that when voices were silenced, when dialogue dies, darkness always rushes in. And so he kept the conversation alive, sometimes at great cost to himself, because he knew America's survival literally depended on it. I remember one of the things Charlie also said, the best days of America can still be ahead if we're willing to fight for them. He wasn't the first person to say that. Benjamin Franklin said it many years ago. She's a great gift if you can keep her. Tonight we grieve the voice that's been silenced, the leader taken too soon. We grieve with his family, his beautiful wife, his precious children. And Mike rightly used the word demonic when I think of Rachel Maddow and all those other faces that said that those kids got what their father deserved. Our grief must not paralyze us, because Charlie himself would not have stood for that. He got death threats at every college campus that he was at. When he started, he only had a couple of campuses. When they took him from us, he He was on 3,500 campuses, and over the last 6 days, 50,000 applications for Turning Point chapters have been applied for. 50,000 applications. There are only 23,000 campuses in the country. America is wounded. Our politics are broken. Our culture is sick. Truly sick. 41% of Gen Z believe it's okay to have political violence to get your point across. But friends, we do have hope. Violence has entered our public square, but so has faith. Through Charlie, through the 10,000 Charlies that he's given birth to in the last 6 days, so has truth. Charlie Kirk's life was proof that even one voice speaking truth without apology can move a generation. We are hopeful that Jack Chitterelli will be here tonight. I'm hopeful that he will come. Moms for Liberty is here. Thank you, Alex. The leaders are here. Families are here. Believers are here. Believers, are you here? And let me make it really clear, the presence of so many faithful Americans in this room is evidence that Charlie's mission isn't over. It's just begun. His race is finished, but not ours. So we got to get up. We got to get those nerves of steel and hearts on fire, and we got to declare that the United States of America has yet to see her best days, 250 years in. We've got to say that freedom is not finished, that truth is not finished, because of this one central truth. Charlie's Savior tonight, my Savior, many of those of you in this room, your Savior, he still reigns. No one's knocked him off of a chair. No one's knocked him down. No one will. Jesus Christ is still the greatest hope. His Bible is still true. His message is still alive. And as long as you and I are willing to speak it, as long as we are willing to defend it, as long as we are willing to live it, the best days of America are not behind us, they are yet to come. So tonight we honor Charlie, not only with tears, but resolve. Let's carry the torch, guided by faith, emboldened by example, and strengthened by the God who made every one of us. Lord, bless Charlie's memory, comfort his family. I'm praying personally that on Sunday when they hold his funeral, that a huge revival breaks out, that they have 150,000 come to the altar and confess Jesus as Savior. He wanted to heal and restore our nation, and he wanted to do it through winsome dialogue with people who disagreed with him. You don't get more American than that. It's easy to talk in the bubble. I work in talk radio. I know what talking in the bubble is all about. He went out and said, if you disagree, come stand at the microphone. I give it to you. And don't believe this garbage. He loved trans kids. He loved the LGBTQ people that were struggling. He loved everyone that he spoke about public policy on because he knew it was more important to reach the heart of the person than to win the argument. And that's what set him apart. Lord, bless Charlie's memory, comfort his family, heal our nation. Thank you for coming out to honor him tonight. Go and make a difference in this election, this cycle, and God bless America.